So, we would like to thank you for showing up tonight for the Puzzle Pieces Together podcast. Like I do every week, I want to remind you, are you asking for your miracles? And number two, we are in a battle. And so, all of us need to really, truly pray that not only the survivors, but the military soldiers do not get activated. A lot of people are being activated right now for the New World Order Army. It is taking place. Things are happening, and so we need as many prayers to stop this and ask God to intervene. So tonight, I have a very sweet person who's going to share a lot of information that might possibly piss you off, but we're trying to do it in a nice way. So don't get too mad, okay? But I'm just kidding. So, hi, Gab. How are you?
Hi, Laura. It's so lovely to see you as always. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're willing to share this information because I know it's not easy and there is consequences, and you're going to talk about that tonight. I wanted to read a short bio about Gabbi. So Gabbi is a survivor of mind control and MK Ultra. She begins to remember her own true story 2 years ago and escaped from the New Age through the power, healing, and deliverance of Jesus. She speaks out to raise awareness about the New Age. It's a huge role in the incoming one world religion and all areas of mind control. So together, we're able to take back our minds and our world. She has a podcast and organizes Truth, Justice, Freedom for Children, a community of support for survivors to learn about healing from mind control and ritual abuse. So thank you for sharing tonight about the New Age because it's something that I don't know a ton about. I know certain things about that I've had red flags about, but I don't fully understand it. So maybe you could share, what it is, kind of how you got started, and maybe what made you leave.
Absolutely. And I would just preface what I'm saying today to survivors and to everyone listening. When we hit programming, often there's a reaction where you're just like, that's wrong. This is triggering me. Like, I've never heard this before. And I think it's really important that we just look at the facts, that we're objective, that we do the research and uncover things, because otherwise we're not going to break through this mind control. And the New Age, my very regrettable foray into the New Age was about 3.5 years. And it's actually completely tied into my whole remembering journey as a survivor. And that's why me speaking out about this is so important, because I found as I was starting to remember all of this programming of the New Age, which is in every single survivor, and I'll explain how that works.
Okay.
As we go through today, survivors are going to feel pulled into the New Age, both as they start to remember and also as they are perhaps struggling in other areas of their life. So it's just such a huge area for us to tackle. And I believe literally we could look at the whole mind control system being based on New Age, because the New Age is based on the Kabbalah, which I know you talk about a lot, Laura, and that is the Tree of Life and Tree of Death programming. That is the base of all mind control programming, both for survivors, but also over our entire community. So it's a very important topic. It took me, as you can hear, 3.5 years to break through it myself. So you just hit wall after wall of deception and lies, and you just have to keep digging and look for the facts. And I'm going to try and present the things today that really helped me break through. And some of that was looking objectively at what the New Age did in past generations, because I think sometimes when we look back, it's easier to be objective because all our emotions aren't tied in, and we can look at it and go, oh, that was so silly. And then we can compare it to exactly what we're doing as a society today. But
Okay.
I'll start with just a little bit about me for people that don't know my story. I'm a survivor of SRA and mind control. My family, so my mother's side, was trafficking me through the Methodist Church in South Australia growing up. So it was a church community, but very much behind that church community and the church front was the New Age, and there was witchcraft, because my grandmother, her parents actually come from Germany, and they come from the Black Forest area, which if you've ever been through that area, it is, it's one of the darkest places on earth. Like I remember going there as an adult. I'm sure I was taken there as a child as well, but it just is so thick with deep, dark witchcraft. Like it's druidry. It's just next level. So that's where they come from. And then on my other side, because it's always two families coming together, my father's side is Chinese and Malay, the islander. So like a lot of Australian survivors, I'm a real blend. So I have, on my mum's side, German and UK. And then on my dad's side, I have basically a pagan Asian heritage as well as the Chinese heritage. So there's four just within my immediate parents. And we've found in Australia that they really have used a lot of mingling of nationalities. And I believe that's because they just want to load us up with as much possibility for programming and possibility for demonic attachments, because there's so many bloodlines being brought together. And yeah, in Australia, we had, after the Second World War, I know in the US, you had Operation Paperclip, where they brought scientists into America. So Australia had the same thing, but it's a lot more suppressed. It's called Operation Matchbox. So we took in German war criminals as well, but we also took in a lot of Polish and Russian war criminals, and that's all completely suppressed. So those operations come into our communities in Australia. That's what I became part of through my generational family. And literally all of those experiments, like using demonics, Nephilim breeding programs, moved into our communities here in Australia, and they are huge. Like, I know when I speak to people overseas, they're kind of like, oh, it must just be like small cults and little groups in Australia. And I was trafficked in my grandmother's town, which has less than 2,000 people, and it had many, many powerful Satanists, and they would fly people in for events, etc. Australia actually has the highest percentage per capita of Freemasons. So, and that's just the lower level. When we start going up to Rosicrucians, Templars, Jesuits, it's exactly the same. Like, we are thick with cults, and we were actually very much set up by the Freemasons, as America was as well. But they have set us up literally as a giant experiment. And the survivors that speak from Australia, and we are very, very heavily suppressed. It's very, very hard for survivors to get their voices out here because we're targeted so much. We're just literally a massive ongoing wartime experiment. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, I started remembering 2 years ago, so only very, very recently. And what actually triggered my memories is a couple of years before that, I met the love of my life, found myself, as you do, in a new group of friends and family, and just started noticing things were very, very off. And within 6 months, I realised, not that Jesus had given me the word for this, but I picked up that I was within a witchcraft cult. And that was just, I didn't have my memories. I had very, very little. I was very sus of my family as a child. I knew they were completely dysfunctional, mentally ill, just awful, awful human beings, and I'd cut them all off. But yeah, this new family was reminding me a lot of them, and it was kind of like something inside of me was just starting to stir. And so at this time, I'd come under massive attack because I had made a very powerful cult, and they're called they run through the Shriners, but this is actually the witchcraft side of that. So that would be called the Daughters of the Nile. So they're very, very high up. They're using like the real Babylonian Egyptian magic. And yeah, they get up to a lot of mischief. So I literally walked into this family, found the love of my life, and walked into the Twilight Zone. The attacks in every way, from frequency to gang stalking and I'm talking gang stalking with shape-shifting hybrids. I was just like, people would just not believe where my life has went to.
Did that start when you met him?
Uh,
Or after? Like,
It pretty much started very much within a couple of months, but it took me 6 months to really make it. And look, it was a process because there was so much denial in me as well. I was like, this can't be happening. It's just bad dreams. You know what I mean? And you know it's not because of the state of the attack. But yeah, it took a little while to process through. And then from there, it literally took me, because my partner's obviously a survivor as well. And so we had two unremembered survivors. My partner's very dissociated, obviously, because he was still stuck in his original cult group. I had absolutely no idea I was a survivor, and I was literally relying on Jesus to lead me out of this entire situation. And he would come in, he would sit me down, give me training on what I needed to do, send in angels when things got too bad. Like, it was such an incredible experience. And you know what? This is a thing that I'm so embarrassed to say is, like, I had this miracle of Jesus coming in and rescuing me out of this cult, like, got us out. It did take just over 18 months, which was like the longest 18 months of my life, to get out of there and to get to safety. But even though I had Jesus physically coming in, training me, teaching me, giving me visions, I was under so much stress and pressure, and, I was being attacked by frequencies. I was getting burns on my body, horrific nausea, like it was just next level. So he was teaching me, but then I was going off and trying to find my own answers, right? So I was looking up things like, how do I deal with frequency weapons? What's going on here? Like, what are people being attacked with? And I could tell that I was being attacked by a lot of demons as well. So I'd try and look up who they were. I needed to find out what I was fighting here. And what that led me into was the New Age. So a lot of the information, when you're become a targeted individual and you're trying to find out, solutions or what's going on, it starts taking you into all these things like, you're a starseed and you're going through ascension symptoms, and there's some truth in there. Like, there is some truth, but it's all mixed in with, don't worry, the aliens are coming to save us, etc. And look, I was completely being shattered through this abuse, which was, spiritual, was physical because there was gang stalking, and it was something that I thought I'd never experienced before. So I was desperately trying to find answers, and unfortunately that led me into the New Age. And because I loved Jesus and Jesus was helping me, and he was warning me about a lot of stuff in the New Age, and sort of steering me through some of the things I was looking at as well. But I was going into the New Age and looking for God. I was reading books in the New Age that referred to Jesus. And that was really where I got taken off track, because the New Age is very tricky in that, it doesn't come across as satanic, or I would describe it more accurately as Luciferian, the light side of the system. But it is, because everything it was teaching me about Jesus, and, as a unremembered SRA survivor, even though Jesus had been very present in my life, I hadn't been able to read the Bible. I didn't know why, but I was so scared of it. And now that I've had my memories, I understand it was because that was used in rituals. So I would never get to the truth. But, Jesus made this effort to be there. But even though he was telling me things, because I didn't have that complete trust in him in this kind of life or death situation, I guess you could say. At that stage of my life, it's different now. I was going off and getting all of these, incorrect answers. And I know now that so many of those books, because I've researched, what I was reading, half of them are channeled. They're channeled from fallen angels and demons, and they are programming. They are exactly the same programming that is used in mind control, and that's what I want to try and lay out in an organised way, because it's such a big topic as well. But what is being put out in these books is from the cults. It is literally like self-serve mind control to top up survivors, and to also lead, other people, like someone that's got PTSD, someone that's had child sexual abuse, someone that's had domestic violence. It becomes like a relief system. It really does. And it is a very, very sophisticated, military intelligence op, but even higher than that, it's run by the top bloodline cults. Yeah, so
well,
I
so
wish
what,
I had that warning before, because it got to the point where it was really dangerous for me, because at times what I was reading was so opposite to, what Jesus was telling me, and it would bring a lot of confusion for me, so it's so important for me, because I know how hard it was for me to break through all this new age programming within me, as an unremembered survivor, to speak out about this to help other survivors.
so give it like an example of what is it that you were reading that was just way off programming? Like, what were some topics?
Yeah, I mean, so because I love Jesus, I was reading things about Jesus. The New Age, for example, combines Jesus in the New Age is an ascended master. And the way they use this is they talk about Jesus. He's never talked about as a son of God. No, never. Because that just wouldn't work for the New Age system. But he's talked about as an ascended master. He's talked about as the husband of Mary Magdalene. And that's very important, because that's the whole New Age strategy, where they're going to try and bring in a bloodliner to be the Antichrist.
And that's about Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, and so I'm reading these books which are described in the New Age as newly found books of the Bible, right? And because I'm too scared to read the Bible, but in my warped mind and my under programming, because I was an unremembered survivor, it was okay for me to go and read a newly found book of the Bible, like, Mary Magdalene. And there's a lot of books about Sophie. There's a lot of books about all the goddesses, which I was reading, but they all talked about Jesus in a good way, but they talked about they were equal to Jesus. So can you see how that's the massive deception, right? There's the God becomes source. Jesus becomes level with these goddesses, fallen angels. And so he doesn't have any power over them, allegedly. And that's where what I knew physically and from what I'd seen him do was wrong. And so I was kind of in this conflict with what I was reading to what I was seeing. So, praise God that Jesus was so present and unraveling all of that for me. But I thought, just to kind of illustrate it, I thought I'd just take us back a little bit to where the New Age really comes from. Because I think if you've got the history, it kind of just like lays it out, and then we can dive into the programming. And like the New Age goes back indefinitely, and really there's nothing new about the New Age. It's actually the ancient Babylonian religions and gods being brought back today. Yeah. Okay. It's just being done under this love and light pretense. But the example I want to give you, just so I think it'll kind of shock a few people, but I think it just shows how powerfully lies can be rolled out to destroy whole communities, is about Tavistock and what they did during the 60s, because Tavistock is the coordinator of all these operations for the nobility families around the world. So in the 60s, we had, the whole sex, drugs, rock and roll, etc. There were bands like the Beatles touring Australia, the USA, around the world. And, it seemed everyone was, on a high. It was all this hippie culture. And this is very much what we're going into right now. And it was all like about freedom. It was about women being liberated. Women could express themselves sexually, right? And it'd come on the back of a really, really bloody war in Vietnam. So the powers that be, the cults, Jesuits, the nobility families, were really worried that the people were going to actually start taking serious action against the military, and they were. So what they did was they actually used rock and roll. They flooded these concerts with LSD, which was produced in Switzerland by a pharmaceutical company called Sandoz, which also supplied drugs for mind control operations around the world at the same time. And they just pumped these concerts and all these unsuspecting people full of drugs. And if we go back, just a few years before that, the same Tavistock, which is, pretty much set up out of the British military, and Tavistock then created the OSS, which is a precursor to your CIA. So it's kind of like this motherboard above all of this. Tavistock, 5 to 10 years before around the world, had just set up all the World Health, mental health organisations and institutions described as mental hygiene. So they flooded all these communities with drugs. They made people completely unstable. They had, people at these concerts with the Beatles, and I'm sure everyone's seen the photos now of, the Beatles holding upside down crosses and all their satanic influences. But they had girls paid to scream at these concerts, and they were literally opening up portals at these concerts so they could just throw demonic energies onto these crowds who had just taken really, really strong LSD, which had never been experienced before. And people were becoming completely unstable, obviously.
Right.
Ending up in mental health, which Tavistock had just set up. And so this was really the beginning, or not the beginning because the bloodliners had already been doing this in the communities, but this is when it went from like family bloodlines to whole corporatization of it. It went to, we're going to go to whole concerts and like literally, take thousands of people into mind control projects because we'll make them paranoid, dissociated, we'll get them into hospitals or wherever they go, whether they go to a hospital, to mental health, to a police station, they're all controlled by the cults, right? So these people were able to be funneled into mind control operations in our community. And so just within such a short period of time, they were able to completely destroy the marriage covenant. They termed this, there was a term created called teenager. And when you think about that, it's all about rebellion, which is exactly the spirit behind the New Age as well. It's rebellion against God. They promoted something that's really cool, going to a rock concert and, rocking out and seeing this new music. It's so trendy, but it's all actually the satanic values just being pumped into society. And, as a kid growing up, I was always like, I wish I was around in the 60s. That's so cool. Such a cool time. Do you know what I mean? But now we can look at it objectively. We can see what they did to society. They really, really, within a decade, dumped society massively, right? And so in the 60s, there was a band, alongside the Beatles, and it was called The Fifth Dimension, very new agey. And it launched the Age of Aquarius. So all of this astrology being brought in, all of these, satanic values were literally brought in, and up like in a stronger way during the 60s, and they've continued to today. It's just been re-released and like during the 70s, 80s and 90s in Australia, and I'm sure it would have been the same in America. All of these new age fairs, psychic fairs, like everything just started springing up. Everyone started being like, I'm so spiritual. And it was like a real hippie repeat, right? And it looked so love and light. It was interesting. People were like, oh, look at these crystals. There's all these new healing modalities. Like it was a real buzz thing. And it was portrayed as being like such an organic movement. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just, this was just this person went overseas and they learnt this from, India. But when you go through and see who was setting these things up, the festivals, etc., it's all military intelligence, just like all the rock stars are all military intelligence. Like it was put in specifically because when they wanted to put pressure on us, they wanted to know that there was somewhere for us to run. They wanted to, drive us out of the Christian belief system, and they were already doing a good job of that because they were releasing all of this information about all the rapes and everything in churches. And look, that's disgusting. I'm a victim of that. But they don't release the rapes of children that happen in childcare or in the Department of Children, like all of the state care. They hide that, but they were happy to release the church stuff because they wanted to crush believers and make them leave the church and funnel them into this new age. So it's a very, very just cunning strategy. And like you just wouldn't think when, your experience of the new age might be reading a book, or it might have been going to a fair or, going to see a psychic. And that might be your experience, but until you research how this was set up and how they flooded our communities with it, it's really scary. And one important thing I think to note is like Hitler did this in the lead up to World War II. This is what happened in Germany, is they were dropping pamphlets, they were promoting at fairs, all of this, the same things. Psychic readings, crystals, like learn how to do astral travel and stuff, because they know if they can get you playing in witchcraft, you're part of their team. You may not think you are. You may think, oh, I'm white, I'm Wicca, and you're black. It's Luciferian. It's a Luciferians versus a Satanist. It doesn't matter.
Would you consider the New Age witchcraft?
Absolutely. So the New Age is witchcraft, and a really good definition of witchcraft is, and it's simple, is just when there is a desire to control, manipulate, and dominate. So we see the New Age everywhere. In corporate, I used to see it in my work training, and that I didn't know the name for it then, but there was a lot of NLP. There was a lot of like go and meditate and go and do yoga and stuff like that. And I just didn't think, we're so blasé about it. There's all these things in churches now too, but the New Age is 100% Luciferian witchcraft, and it is the light side of the system. So they're driving us from cabal, the deep state, which I don't even believe in those words. They're driving us from the satanic system. They're showing that, and they're driving us into the light side. And you need to stay out of both, because it's both two arms of witchcraft. Just like the right and left of politics, they always do this, is try and run us from one into the other. And if we don't do our research, we get stuck. And I know, Laura, you've written about the 12-year coming of age rituals, and
13.
Yeah, 12 or 13. And I see a lot of similarities in, what is done in those rituals, because that's all about the survivor, and this is in their program parts, so their back parts that they don't normally have access to, basically being forced to, programmed to choose Lucifer and choose Lucifer's kingdom. And when I look at what the New Age does through all its initiations, and if you stay in there for too long, it's like, I've got to keep doing this, because that's what's put out there. It's very much the same thing about choosing consciously now in your front parts to be a god, to not see that God is above us and to worship a god, but to think that you can be a god yourself. And I just wanted to read out what Laura has in her book about what they say in the 13-year-old ritual, because you can just hear this in the New Age. And it's, I will ascend to heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit on the mount of the congregation, and I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Really what we want to be saying every day is, I'm a child of God. But the New Age is very much promoting that Jesus was a prophet, Jesus was a psychic, and I don't believe any of these things, mind you. Jesus was an alchemist. You go and be one too. He was a magician. He did magic. He walked on water. He did astral travel. He was married to Mary Magdalene, and she was a high priestess. There's so many lies, but, because I didn't have the Bible, I was like, I love Jesus. Did he do that? Wow.
Well, the thing is
I was programmed as well with the same thing. So it sounded like, okay, maybe.
And the funny thing is that every single survivor has already been taught to astral project and remote review. That's part of their training. So when they say, oh, you got to learn how to do it, well, they already know how to do it, and they've done it for their whole life. So anyway, that is part of mind control programming. I have always been against the astral projecting, because you're leaving your body, and when you leave your body, nobody's home. So who's going to be taking over your body while you're out? I would think a demon would love to take that, or an unclean spirit.
They do. That's very common. And whether we're talking about psychic abilities, astral travel, channeling, these are all demonic gifts. And people in the New Age will get upset when you say this, but until you go through deliverance, and you see, I had to go through deliverance for leaving the New Age. I've experienced all of this, and I'll go through some resources for people that are hearing this and going, wow.
I just would like to ask you a question.
Come out.
Okay, so there was a person who discussed her joining the New Age with me. but she said and I connected a little bit to something that she may have also did at her 26-year-old event. Is she said she was about the same age, 27, and she had to make a oath to Lucifer that she was going, and she literally was discussing with demons, like an open conversation, and they were responding to her, and they said, I will take can we take your soul for you and keep it safe? That was one of the things. Now, how
No,
anybody could ever
I do
say
not
yes,
consent.
but that's what they did. And they also said, we'll do this for you if you promise to do this. And they were having this real like hardcore conversation, and she gave in. She said she gives her soul to Lucifer. And now I don't know if it's true she's trying to get away, or if she's just somebody who's being used as a spy. But I really feel like, oh my gosh, it was with the things that she was saying is so mind control programming
It
of a
really
survivor.
really is. Once you know, because obviously me and Laura speak with survivors a lot and have dived into the programming. Once you know what mind control programming is, like I can look at what's going out in the new age and just be like, they're hitting this, this, and this through the colors, through the wording. There is such specific things, and I can be like, they're trying to access this type of slave and reprogram them at the moment. And like that was an extreme example that you were talking about there, Laura, where in the new age she was being actually told she was doing those things with Lucifer. I would say because that, like, I wanted nothing to do with Lucifer. I ran into that guy plenty of times in my life, and I was just like, I don't want anything to do with him. However, in the new age, there will be things in books and meditations, etc., that will be like, do those things with an angel, do those things with Mary Magdalene. These are fallen angels, these are Lucifer's buddies, right? So like, because I didn't understand that, I was like, oh, well, speaking to Mary Magdalene's not the worst thing in the world. She's Jesus's wife. It's all lies. It is all lies. And I was going to just highlight some of the cults that are involved in the new age, because I think when I researched this, I was just like, whoa, this is just so shocking. So right at the top, you have the Jesuits and the Templars. I mean, we always hear that. And obviously above that, all of the black nobility families, the Windsors, etc., are involved in this. And they practice this because they practice Druidry and Druid magic.
Yeah.
It's new age. It's today's Wicca. It's the spirit behind Wicca. But you'll see the Jesuits and the Templars in the new age, and they're often associated with the bee symbol.
The what? V. Sorry. Okay.
Bee, like buzzy bee, like a honey bee.
Oh, a honeybee. Okay.
And the hexagon, because the hexagon is, what's a hexagon? But the hexagon is like the honeycomb squares of the bee. And this is all about, when you start seeing these symbols of hexagons, bees, it's all about the hive mind they're creating, okay? So another part of the new age, besides all the demonic influence that I've kind of went into a bit there, is the technology. So the new age was developed to be the platform that the military, as the contractors would roll it out for the cults above them, of all the tech to basically monitor people, to target them, to reprogram them with frequencies, because a lot of the programming today is done through frequencies. Kids are programmed through their smartphones. Like, it's not like it was in my day 40 years ago. It's so different, isn't it, Laura? So the new age introduced Fitbits. The new age introduced all of this idea of meditating together and coming onto the same consciousness. Like, this is all part of the hive mind, and it's just getting more and more amped up through all the new technology coming through. So when you see hexagons, when you see the bee, know that that's the Jesuits and Templars. But another important cult to throw in there is the Rosicrucians, the Rosy Cross. The Rosy Cross is really, really in deep with the new age, and you can pick that because that's all the goddess stuff. The rose, a lot of the assets that are Rosicrucians have rose in their name. They'll be very, and they're probably mind controlled. So I'm saying this out of complete, I've broken free, and I hope they do. No judgment here, do you know what I mean? They're probably slaves, and they have no idea what they're doing as well. But yeah, you'll see the Rosicrucians very, very much involved in the New Age too.
Okay.
And then it starts coming down to cults like the Freemasons. And people are surprised about that. They're like, because most people know about the Freemasons. They know that the Freemasons are evil. That understanding's out there. And they're like, how can the Freemasons be involved in New Age? Well, if you haven't done them, I would recommend you do the prayer announcements that Amanda Byers has put together for Freemasonry. And as you go through them, you'll see how each level is about initiating your spine or initiating you through the 33 levels, which is a 33 vertebra going up your spine. And we know, because it's a ritual, Laura, that at each level there's demonics, there's covenants, there's oaths added. It's programming. You're programming yourself through Freemasonry. The Freemasons are actually running a lot of the New Age. And when you get through to their last levels and initiations, you'll see it's all about the Kabbalah tree. It's all about moving the Kundalini serpent up your spine. And can I just say, God created us and he did not put a snake at the bottom of my spine.
Right.
That is total lie, right? So, and it's so like I hear people talking about all the time that they believe that they know God, but they've got a Kundalini serpent. And this is the hard thing. We've been so deceived by the New Age. You don't have a Kundalini serpent. And if you do, from doing these practices, get deliverance and pray it out, because it's an evil spirit of Antichrist. And the cults are using this to initiate people. You are initiating yourself through the New Age, through the practices you do, the meditations with angels, and all of the calling in this. They've got a movement within the New Age which is all about saying I am God, I am this, I am that, and it's very similar to those oaths from the 13-year-old ritual. It's all about I'm a god, and this is the thing. The New Age is all about rebellion, which is exactly what these cults are about as well. They're rebelling against God too, but they've just coded the New Age in this love and light. So it sounds so attractive and it's beautiful and it's about freedom and peace. It's not. They're trying to initiate you into the Luciferian kingdom. And I've seen so many survivors stuck in the New Age completely lose their marbles over the last few weeks and months. I've had to remove people from, our community chat groups because they've went from being a little bit, I'm like, oh, they're a bit in the New Age. I'm trying to pray over them, etc. They've come out with stuff like Lucifer's coming to save the world.
Oh my gosh. Do you think it's because they're being activated, that they're probably survivors anyway?
I believe that, the New Age programming that's going out is just being amped up and it's just continually opening doors, and they're just sending through more and more to connect with the survivors programming. And if you think about it this way, as a survivor, if you haven't healed through and went through all of your back parts, there are parts of you that were designed by the cult to do witchcraft. There are parts of you that were designed for a new world order task. There are parts of you that were designed for very, very bad things. So until you have deprogrammed them, done prayer work, had the demons taken off them, reintegrated them, they are still there. So you might not know that they're there. But then what you do by going into the New Age is your conscious front parts. What you've probably absorbed some parts that were about you being victimized and what the cults did to you, but nothing yet about, anything nasty. Like I was just a victim. I wasn't forced to do anything. It's not true. It's not true. That's not how it works. I'm sorry. Like I'm like just under 2 years through, and it is not how it works. We need to heal those. We need to heal those parts of us that they are going to try and use to hurt other people. That's what we most need to do at this time. And they're going to be the parts that were set up for witchcraft. And they are the parts that are speaking to you just quietly through the back and encouraging you, because they're seeing all these symbols through the New Age. They're seeing sacred geometry, which is used in programming. They're seeing like the same witchcraft, just with different names.
I think too, I think we should clarify too, is because yes, Lucifer has infiltrated everything, but that's also to not let anyone have anything. So if we say everything is Luciferian, then I think that's also going over the edge. I think yes, you can point out the bad things, but there's also good things. Sacred geometry is actually created by God, and how the patterns of life are created from sacred geometry. Lucifer stole that. That is what we're dealing with.
I don't agree with that about sacred geometry. I just feel like the patterns of life are God's creation, right?
Right, that's sacred geometry. That is from God.
Sacred geometry is the way that the fallen ones have tried to explain God's creation, and that's where it gets really tricky with things like alchemy, etc. Because it's God's creation, and they can't create, but what they can do is they can make recipes for stuff, or they can make plans, and a lot of our science and our maths, which is behind sacred geometry, is complete bullshit. Like, it's not true. It's all lies from the cults to keep us.
But what do you do? Like, my mind is working this. Like, if he's infiltrated everything, well, where's God? Where's God's stuff? Like, so everything is bad, and so right now is like, I am somebody that was truly healed a lot, not only through God, of course, but I went to 20 years of logical talk therapy that didn't do shit. And when I found some healing modalities like tapping and body code, they saved my life. They've saved so many. So I really feel like we have to be careful when we say all modalities are Satan, because that's just not true.
And I'm not saying all modalities are.
Okay, NLP, it can be used for good, but they use it for bad. That's true.
Everything's infiltrated at this stage. So as a survivor, you really need to use a lot of discernment.
That's what I want to say. Yes.
Absolutely everything. Because even in Christian therapies, there's going to be deceivers in there. There's so many fakes. There's fakes in everything. There's fake Christian platforms. It's endless.
That's what I'm saying, is where do we draw the line so we don't think everything sucks? You know what I mean? Because it's so it's really good to see what we're looking at in the new age and everything. But I think we also have to keep looking for God's hand in this world. Like, where is he? Like, not every church is bad. Every church has been infiltrated, and they're going to have bad leaders, and they're going to have bad this, but does it mean everything they teach is bad? I mean, I feel like sometimes we go overboard and everything's bad, and I don't want to do that. I want to be more balanced here, because like what you're saying about New Age is, I can totally see all their evil and how they've infiltrated everything. I just want to make sure people realize there's another side too, because sometimes that can be very overwhelming to figure out every damn thing that has been infiltrated by the military. And it is that we got to have some good stuff too. So,
and I actually think, that's part of the realizing what's going on, is you go through that stage where you're just like, everything is infiltrated, and it's overwhelming. But then I actually think that gives us the inspiration to go out and create solutions as well. And I feel that for believers, like, everything is infiltrated. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. You need to check everything. But for believers, like, we have the time now to stand in God's truth and create what he wants to be created at this time, live our purpose that he made for us. So I don't care how it's been pretty dark around me my whole life. I don't care what they're doing. I focus on what God wants me to create, and that's all that matters. And I know that I'm continuing to pull back the layers and remove things that I don't want in my life. They were fine yesterday, they were fine last week, but they're not up to the standard I want with God anymore. So it's a stripping away process, and you can't throw it all out immediately. I think you've just got to take it step by step, peeling back the layers as well.
I think when you're a survivor and you are dealing with this stuff, sometimes you do get consumed, and everything is about the dark side as you're trying to get out of the dark side. But you know what? I even at this stage in my life, when I'm helping all these clients and dealing with attacks from everything, sometimes even I find myself getting consumed with their bullshit. I'm cussing a lot now. But anyway, it's the BS that you can get consumed in and forget about the light in Jesus Christ. He can help you through all that, and he does help you through all that. But how many times have we become lost in focusing on what they're doing and what they have done? I don't know. I find that that's very easy to do.
Yeah, and I think you have to spend, if you're going to spend time exploring or healing people that are hurt, because that's a big job, Laura, you need to make sure that you're spending enough time in God's word and creating with God. And if you don't, you're going to become unbalanced. Like for me, the time that I spend in God's word, the time I spend in prayer, the time I spend learning more about God's kingdom, because I'm at the point where like I know enough about the enemy's kingdom. Like the patterns are all obvious to me. And I'm not saying I know everything. I will continue to learn. But if I don't spend enough time focused on creating God's purpose for my life, I'm not here to focus on what they're doing. I know it's shit, it's what they're doing. They're hurting people, but I need to create solutions. And, I
And
think,
that's it, to look for solutions. Yeah. I mean, I've had the Lord say, I have literally had the Lord say to me, because I'm so wrapped up in helping all of these survivors and all of their stuff. And literally my day is casting out demons. And then at night I have attacks, and it's like, and then I'm like trying to overcome that. And it's like, okay, God, he's like, you're forgetting something, and you're forgetting. I mean, I read my scriptures every single morning, and I say my prayers, and I do all that stuff. I say it with my husband. Like, we do all kinds of spiritual things. And yet I still can find myself, in this. I think it's because of what is in my life. If I probably wasn't seeing clients, it probably wouldn't be that big of a, because I wouldn't be casting out demons all day. So anyway.
yeah, it's always like if it's coming up for you now, I think it's just like God's giving you a message that it's time to rebalance, right? Like, and we all have that. You're like, okay, something's not working. What do I need, God? Take it to the courts of heaven and be like, I'm putting this down. I need some help with this.
That is true. Okay, well, let's go back to, I wanted to ask you, what you were talking about, something about the new age, and you said that there's this big thing about goddesses, and and then we talked privately about Metatron, and who was the other one? The Merkaba in the Metatron cube. How are they using this in the new age? Like these, because through mind control programming, they have a lot of goddesses mind control programming with the demons, and Metatron is a demon, and Merkaba is used to go to the evil worlds. And so how are they using it in the new age?
Yeah, so when you see Metatron, it's like the Freemasons triangle of the as above, so below, right? Which is a 6-pointed star. What's the symbol on the State of Israel flag? Now that same symbol, right, is everywhere. So, it's in Hinduism, it's in Buddhism, it's in all the ancient Babylonian religions, it's in the Catholic Church. So it shows.
The Pentagon, is the Pentagon the 5 or the 6-pointed star? I can't remember.
Pentagons are 5, so that's like the bottom tree, and the hexagon is the or the 6-pointed star is the above tree in the programming. But yeah, it literally shows you that the New Age is running on the same system as the Vatican, right? So, and they're all running on the Babylonian system. And without going too much into the programming, because me and Laura could probably do that as a completely separate session, I just wanted to show where the goddesses pop in. So when you're programmed as a child, the very, very early splits are, people would call it black and white programming, good child, bad child programming. And this is all used by the cults. You can see it in the Freemasonic, black and white tiled floor. And it's all about opposites and, controlling us that way. And the only way to live and get through it is to ascend or get out of your body, to dissociate. So we've got the white, which becomes a day, time programming, so what you remember, and then the black becomes the night. Okay, so in my time, because I'm a little bit older than some of the survivors that'll be listening to this. The princesses that were introduced through Disney were for my white side, or the daytime programming was Sleeping Beauty. So Sleeping Beauty, my daytime program, my fronts, is basically that whole program is about waiting for the Antichrist. It's about waiting for someone to come and save you, whether it's a political figure, because we know they're all owned, whether it's, someone else you're idolizing, a celebrity. It's basically you're going to get stuck and dragged in through that programming. What we're more concerned of here with the goddesses is when we drop down into the nighttime, the black programming that's not generally known by survivors until they really start deprogramming. That becomes the witchcraft area, and that is.
Are you sure? Because the thing that I feel anyway, that they attach demons to every program,
every level,
and so that is witchcraft. If you use demons in any form, that is witchcraft. So even your front altars, they have witchcraft, they have demons attached.
It's kind of the Wicca stuff. The front altars are going into the New Age, while the back altars are in the pentagram programming rather than the Star of Refam. And they're dealing with, complete witchcraft. These altars have been hurt so badly through horrific abuse that they're really angry. And a lot of it comes from, whether it's the initial programmer, often a father figure. Firstly, the survivor goes through pink programming, which is, the child's groomed, it's over-sexualized, but it's rewarded. And it's often given pink gifts, like mine with Barbie things, because it's the Barbie pink, which is another trigger that goes out into the community. Then those are shattered and they really start going into witchcraft, because the person that was giving you attention for putting up with this grooming and this sexualization begins to violently hurt you. And so those parts that had been thinking they were doing the right thing, the good, they were thinking they were being a good girl, just completely go into a rage. They are so broken and so hurt that the one person that they were holding on to and trying to please has betrayed them, that they are full of hate. And Laura, you would know this very well as I do. When you're attacked by a bunch of witches, the predominant energy that comes over you is rage and hate. Like, that is their fuel. Like, that is where those parts, so it's those parts that have been hurt by men. And look, there's sorcerers as well, but I would say, this is an area that the cults specifically use women, because they know that the wounded feminine will go into a rage and a hate, and she will hate men. And that is literally what witchcraft is. Witchcraft is seeking to control and dominate and manipulate, and it comes from a very, very, very broken place. And I know this is going to be hard for people to hear, and so I'm going to use myself as an example. I was being pulled into the New Age because I was a very, very broken person. Like, I was very successful. I kept myself very busy. Like, I've had an incredible life, but it was really bloody hard. Inside of me, everything was falling apart. I was like, I didn't even know how I'm holding myself together or running day to day. But I made myself because I could. So I got drawn into the New Age because I had so much hurt, and I had pushed all the hate and anger, everything that, I questioned about my family, any sort of weird memory, down so far that it was just festering. Do you know what I mean? So I would go into the New Age, and the New Age would help me feel better. But the truth is, it wasn't really making me feel better. It would help me dissociate, because what it teaches is all the ancient Hindu and Buddhist practices of rising above things and becoming enlightened is actually leaving your body. And I was trained in a lot of that as a child, which I've now remembered. So going in and doing these meditations, etc., listening to light language, like sounds and tones from supposed aliens, which was what I was getting led into when I was trying to find answers about the targeting. All of those things start taking us out of our bodies. And exactly like you said about the astral travel before, Laura, out of our bodies is a really dangerous place to be. If you're under attack, and there's more demons around at this time than ever before, they're going to want to come in. The best and strongest place for you to be is completely grounded in your body. And, that's the difference that I feel with the Holy Spirit is when I'm working with the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit is healing me, or I'm using the Holy Spirit with healing someone else, like, I feel heavy. Like, I feel like completely in my body, I feel grounded. Any revelation that comes to me just comes through the top of my head, comes down. It's almost just like water, like God's water washing through me. Now, in the New Age, what we're taught with meditating and your psychic gifts, etc., it is literally like you're flying out of your body. It is so ungrounded. You're thinking you're a half starseed, half alien, like half whatever, half fairy, and you're halfway out of your body because you're dissociating so much because that's what they teach. And if you talk about, I don't like this, or this isn't working, or I actually have a problem, people in the New Age will start saying things like, oh, that's very 3D. That's very low vibe. You need to raise your vibration. You need to do more meditation, get some more crystals. Maybe you need a psychic session, or, a psychic massage. Like this is the thing. Like when people are starting to realize that it's not working, the system's set up to make you the problem rather than the system. And I wanted to share some of the things that were said to me by the New Age.
Okay.
And it's really, really common. And I get this all the time on my platforms as a survivor when, bless them, because these people are obviously stuck in the New Age themselves. But for them to try and cope with hearing what I'm talking about or my story, this is what they have to come back with. And, it just points to how unhealed, unfortunately, people are in this. And, the New Age will say things like, victims they come to Earth to choose this experience. You've come from another planet and you've come to Earth and you chose to go through satanic ritual abuse. And that is so hard to hear for a survivor, right? Like I did not choose to be abused in that way. I didn't. God had a will and a purpose for my life, and that is to clear up my bloodline. I did not choose for that abuser to abuse me as a 5-year-old or at whatever age, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of points to those people in the New Age can't really deal with witnessing someone's pain or, really deal with hurt because they haven't processed their own. Then there'll be things like, well, this has happened to you because you were actually an abuser in a past life. So this is your karma. You were an abuser last time. So, you chose now to experience what it's like on the other side. And this whole karma idea, like this is the Hindu black and white programming. Like the Hindu religion, it was a slave system. It was about the very rich Nephilim overlords keeping their people in complete poverty. It was awful, and the whole New Age, the predominant religion it's based on, it's just not said, is Hinduism. So it's the same 2-class slave system that's being enforced. And you can look at what's said, like when people are being taught to say to someone, it's your karma, you chose this experience, it's only benefiting the abusers. And it really points back to the cults that set this up. Like Aleister Crowley, while he was writing his books for the New Age, was raping little boys, doing sex magic. And, Barbara Hubbard, which is another really big name in the New Age, she was linked to the Finders cult. These are the people that created the books, the doctrine, the beliefs behind the New Age. And so you can see, and Tony Robbins has been called out in NLP for the same thing, for saying to victims, you chose this, like in front of a whole conference group. Can you imagine as a survivor, like being at a conference and having a figure like Tony Robbins say, oh, you chose this, why did you choose this?
I think this is my personal opinion, just based on my belief system, is I think we didn't choose to be abused. I think the Lord talked to us about our journey and got our free will choice to say it's okay. Does that entail every single thing that's going to be bad based on other people's free will? No, but we're going to have an idea. We're going to have an idea that we're going to go through a specific family line and have some specific things happen. But I've always felt I was put in this family to stop this, which I feel like has been going for 8 generations. I feel like I was given the opportunity to say no, but I said yes. And I feel very strongly that, I don't think we understood what we were agreeing to, but I think God gave us our free will and choice to say, this is going to be your journey because you have these skills and I want you to learn these skills. And that's called the book of life that he gave us. Now Lucifer spends all of his time making sure we can't live our book of life, and that's when the demons get attached to us and take our and have their legal rights to us, and then that prevents us from living our book of life, which is God's will for us. But the one thing I want everybody to understand is God, Jesus Christ, and God the Father are all about free will. And so everything is based on free will. He is not going to take your free will away. And you have to go to him. Like, he might try to help you a little bit, but he won't take your free will to get you to come to him. He's not going to do that ever. So he is based on free will, and Lucifer is built on no free will whatsoever. And so any survivor knows that.
So well said, Laura. And it is, the whole enemy's kingdom is based on witchcraft. It's manipulation and control to get things done. God's kingdom is the complete opposite. And I absolutely believe, that I made that decision, and God's been revealing that I came to bear testimony and heal my bloodline of all of this nonsense that has been going on for so long. But what I'm saying with that being wrong about the karma, etc., is I'm not excusing the shame and responsibility that each individual abuser should hold. That shame is not mine. It is not the survivors, as Tony Robbins would say to them.
Yeah.
It deserves to go back to every single cult member. And just as I have to take responsibility for anything that I'm not proud of, that I've done while I was under programming, so do they. There's no excuse.
Everyone else.
Yeah. And the New Age is very quick to, the Secret, the book that Oprah was promoting, it, that was launched as a Christian book. And it's so not. It's all about there's no sin. And it all comes back to, what Aleister Crowley was putting out, the do as thou wilt. That's really the predominant spirit in the New Age. It's just go and do whatever you want. Be in rebellion to God. You're a God. Do all these initiations and you'll be a god. You can do whatever you want, like.
Do you do initiations, like rituals type things? Or
I read books. There was things like light a candle on a full moon. Like, I would do stuff like that. I bought crystals. No way. I think that kind of stuff, like doing rituals, etc., would freak me out. But I know a lot of people in the New Age that catch up and they do they call full moon ceremonies. There'll be groups of them that do stuff together. And I'm not saying that these rituals completely go to the point of what a full Luciferian ritual would be, but the elements in it, and it literally is the elements because it's all about using fire, water, earth, air, and spirit. This is alchemy, this is witchcraft, and they start introducing it in such a way, like I said, it'll be like, well, Mary Magdalene was a disciple and she used to do this with her friends, and because you haven't read the Bible, if you're stupid like I was back then, I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. No, it's not. It's lies, and it's what the enemy is doing is, he's literally leading people into his kingdom, because then you're no longer the enemy. He's a very smart.
Right.
Smart bugger, right? He can war against us, but why war against us when you can become a soldier in his kingdom? And, people are going to be upset because they'll be like, oh, I would never do that, etc. I would just say, I've seen people that I know are survivors, not always that they do, just because of the extent of the trauma they've spoken to me about, completely lose themselves and act in very aggressive and violent ways over the last 2 weeks to 2 months especially, and start saying things like Lucifer's coming to save the world. So if you think that you're not being affected by New Age, think again, because when I did deliverance, there were so many demons that come out when I did the Freemasonry deliverance, and also the deliverance straight after that, which is the New Age, which is the top levels of Freemasonry. Basically what you're doing in the New Age, when you're practicing your meditation and speaking to angels, etc., they're starting to just put a little gap in the door and start to open these different levels of Freemasonry. And they've got it all planned. They know exactly which entities they're trying to squeeze into which parts with what word triggers. It's so similar to programming. Like, I just have to look at a New Age paragraph or a blog and I'm just like, it's evil. It's so evil what they're doing to survivors through the New Age. It really makes me mad. And that's why I speak out about it so much, because, you know, I'm really lucky in the situation that I was, because I was under so much attack from a cult around me, and I was getting so lost in the New Age because of what was going on. You know, if Jesus wasn't right there leading me through it, I don't know if I would have got through. And it was really hard, because even what Jesus was telling me was going against all of my inner programming, and I didn't know I was a survivor then. Like, and there's so many sleepers out there. There's so many me's. Like, I look at people and I'm like, oh no, like, you're exactly where I was 2 years ago, and I know how tough it is to get through it. And like, so in the 2 years that I was trying to escape, because I was being gang stalked so much, I just wanted to share an example of how prominent this goddess programming is. I decided, because every time I went outside, it was just like full attack. I needed to find some good things to do at home that would preoccupy me and were positive and creating. So I was like, I'll do a painting. So I'm here like doing a painting, which I hadn't done in years. And I decided I will start painting Isis and Pegasus and myself rising out of the water with the moon above me. Now, that might all sound lovely, and it probably come from some of the, you know, books about Jesus that I was reading in the New Age. But as I've been
programming.
Yeah, and as I've been deprogramming, they were some very prominent gatekeepers and entities that were used through multiple levels of my programming. Like, Isis is such a predominant Isis is such a predominant goddess in survivors programming. You know, Queen Elizabeth, you know, she represents the cult of Isis. You know, there's so many levels of where Isis is bonded into us as survivors. And I was sitting here painting her as an unremembered survivor. That painting has been burnt and destroyed, by the way. But how scary is that, you know? And I'm thinking I'm doing this beautiful painting, you know, and not thinking it's anything against Jesus, because the books I've been reading that had Isis in it had Jesus as well. So Jesus was cool with Isis, right? No, he's not cool. He's not cool with these Babylonian gods. And, you know, for survivors, we've got so many goddesses loaded into as demons into us to manage programming, like Kali, Sophia. And the New Age is constantly using their names. The New Age is talking about Egypt, about South America, about Atlantis. You know, these are all programming areas. They're Babylonian, you know, links. They're portals into the underworld, and these triggers are in survivors. You know, so I would get this sensation. It was like I was being triggered, and I recognize now it was my front and back parts like just bouncing off each other. And like, I would see stuff in the New Age and I'd just be like, it's too much. But there'd be something in me that would want to read more. And then there'd be something going, no. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's really common with the survivors I spoke to. It's kind of like this push-pull of the trigger. And if you can identify that, you know, that's when your programming is being dragged by something around you. So push it away.
Do you think most of the people that do the New Age is because they don't have any relationship fully with Jesus Christ? Like, they haven't read the Bible, didn't grow up with Jesus really. Maybe they know of him, think he's okay. Do you feel like those are the people that they go after to be susceptible?
Definitely. And, you know, that really targets survivors, right, as well. But it targets everyone, because in our schools we're indoctrinated into being atheists through, you know, the theory of evolution, which was written by a 33-degree Mason, Charles Darwin, you know. So every single step of the way, we've been taught to hate God and hate Jesus, right? So everyone thinks that it's their idea. They just haven't done their research. They think they're so independent and they're so smart and so ahead of the rest because they've realised that God's a lie, but they actually haven't done their research to realise that they're actually stuck in a massive program. But I do believe that, and it was really dangerous for me to go looking for God and Jesus, and that's who I was looking for. I wasn't looking for any of the goddesses. I was looking for God and Jesus. But because I hadn't read the Bible, I couldn't tell when I was being misled.
Right.
So it felt good. And this is a big thing with the new age. If it feels good, it's the truth. As a survivor, I'm going to tell you flat out, if it's a truth, it usually really hurts for a while. And then once you get through the healing, it feels really good. But I've never hit truth as a survivor and went, oh, that feels amazing. I don't know about you, Laura, but yeah, my truth as a survivor.
Are you talking about remembering things?
Yeah, but any truth. I mean, like when you find out that the government's been trying to kill us, when you find out that there's bioweapon is this, like they're not happy moments. And that was the truth. So thinking that the truth feels good is an absolute lie. And it's helping you dissociate and stay stuck in the new age, because what happens is people that have PTSD, survivors, they already dissociate to cope with life. And then they go to the new age and it teaches them even more techniques from the Babylonian gods and bonds them into these demons. So they're able to dissociate even more. So anytime they hit a wall of friction, which will be the truth, you know, anything that's trying to slow them down, like for me, it was Jesus, like, don't read that. And I'm like, oh, I kind of think I have to. Like, I had Jesus literally in the room at times to save me from this cult, telling me not to do stuff. And I was like, but I think I need to, like, seriously, but he gives us free will. So, and now I look back and I just laugh as he does with me. And I realized that I had to do this so I could speak out and help other survivors, because it was 3.5 years where I was, you know, I wasn't deeply into it like some people, spending hours a day. I was reading a few books, buying crystals, but I was getting misled, and it was really dangerous as a survivor.
I mean, I think of one person, I won't say who she is or anything, but I like her so much. And she has a very big following. She, you know, believes fully what she's teaching, but it is all new age. And to me, I know she has the purest heart ever. So it's not out of you know, anything bad. It's that she truly, truly believes this. And that to me is very sad, that, you know, to the degree that someone can really truly truly be deceived when that is not their heart. So that's really who Satan goes after, right?
Well,
So
Satan's going to deceive everyone in this time, right? It's the Bible. I mean, if you haven't read the Bible, do what I did. Start with Revelations. I think that's what you need to know first, and then start going through the rest. The Bible talks about how we're going to get deceived, like people that think they believe in Jesus, which 2 years ago I was being deceived, and I thought I believed in Jesus, and I had Jesus appearing in visions and in my life, and I was still being misled. Like, that's how cunning this deception is. And it took him 2.5 years or whatever to wake me up, do you know what I mean, and get me through all my programming. So yeah, absolutely. Like, if we don't do our research, if we don't look into things, and, you know, I don't want to offend anyone with saying this, but, you know, it doesn't serve survivors, and it doesn't serve God not speaking the truth. But I am 100% that, you know, I was very much trained to be exactly what a lot of people are on platforms at the moment. You know, I was trained to be a new age super soldier like the rest of them. I was trained to go out and speak and promote the new age and have followers, and, you know, even though I was deceived myself, talking about, you know, Christ consciousness and Isis or whatever, that's a road that very easily could have become mine, Laura. And so when I look around and see other people doing it, like, I only feel compassion, and I just want healing for them. So this is not coming from a place of judgment. But what you need to know is, if you're watching that, that is a person under programming. That is a survivor under mind control with witchcraft altars active. And whether that person is lovely in their heart or not, they will be programming you with trigger words because it's still in their programming. So, you know, we're living at a time where, you know, there's so many sleepers. There is so much infiltration. Like, we just need to, turn to God. And like, I pray after watching everything. I pray after reading everything. And I just say, God, break any witchcraft that I come across, break any programming in the mighty name of Jesus. I break it. And then I pray and just say, God, give me some discernment on what I just watched as well. And I will, my own thing that I do myself is I just say, what didn't I agree with? Like, if you can train yourself to watch something and just say, what didn't I agree with? It starts helping you monitor with your subconscious mind what is going in. It's not just pouring in.
Good point.
It just, otherwise you can just take in stuff. And, you know, people think they can watch people they don't like, you know, a Russell Brand or a Sasha Stone, who are cult front members, and they can think they're being entertained and having a good time, even though they know that they're not speaking the truth and they're operating for the cult. It's not true. These people are trained speakers. They are trained in witchcraft. They will be completely activating programming within you, especially if you're a survivor. But even if you're not a survivor, you've still been programmed through the media and entertainment, through movies, through every single thing you watch, even on alternative media. So you just can't pray to break witchcraft enough at the moment, Laura.
And I think we just want to remind everybody, when you said, you know, things you've witnessed changes in people 2 weeks to 2 months, and you know what that is people need to understand is they're being activated for the new world order. They are being activated. That's what we have to realize. That it isn't some random crazy going on. They're being activated to do these things right now to bring in the new world order. They have to bring it in, and they have to do it now. And so this is really go time in the battle. And so anybody who, I mean, I have to say this over and over, and I know that it's very hard to say this, but I know this for myself, and that's who I'll speak from this time, is if you do not integrate all of your parts, they can get a hold of you, period. I don't care what you think about that. It's the truth. That if you have unintegrated parts, if they are in control of if they created those parts of you, they will activate you for this new world order. And we have, that's why the prayer to shut it down, so it's intervened, so they can't activate people, is the most important thing that we can possibly do right now in history. Is all of us pray so much that nobody is getting, I mean, there are some people getting activated, but they want to do it at a much greater level. So I think that's the key. We have to understand what's happening here. It's not random.
Absolutely. And Laura, just with what you said, like, I just wanted to share some of my own personal experiences as a survivor, just of what's been happening recently with the attacks, because I want survivors to understand what they're doing and how they can protect themselves. And firstly, I just want to say I don't have any fear of this. Like, I grew up in a witchcraft cult, and God and Jesus have shown me every step of the way that we have absolute power and dominion over this. It is really annoying. It is really annoying when I have things to do and I have to break curses, or I've been up all night because I've been sending in witches all night. But you know what? I know that God is working and revealing things at this time as well. So I wanted to share the way that I've been targeted and attacked, so I can potentially help other survivors identify if this is happening to you, and then just share some quick solutions as well. So just after I released my video about the goddess and phoenix programming, which if you haven't seen and you feel like maybe you have some goddess programming, that would be a good resource for survivors to go to, because it goes into it in more detail. I come under a lot of targeting by a bunch of witches, and I would say there's between 10 and 15 most of the time when they come in, and I'd never had this experience before with a group like that. But they were actually coming in, and this was while I was still awake. I had just laid down on my couch and I was resting after a Zoom I'd just done, just staring at the ceiling, you know, whatever, and it was still daylight. I noticed the whole roof basically come black, and it was just like a black cloud formed over it. And I know when that happens, like, I'm about to go into a fight. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. This massive hand come through. Huge. Like, I mean, I couldn't see what it was attached to, but it was literally, the hand was the size of my whole body, and it just started shaking me. And the weirdest thing is, I mean, because the hand isn't physical, it's etheric, and behind that I could just feel the energy of a whole lot of witches sending that demon in together. It was shaking my body so much that it was like my soul was being shaken more than my physical body, if that makes sense. So, you know, I was like, God, what's happening? What do I need to do? And he was showing me how to pray against it. And he was like, they're trying to take your soul out. And I was just like, that ain't happening. So, you know, just rebuking it in the name of Jesus. I called for Jesus to call in his angels, and I could literally feel call in angels of a high enough warrior class is what you need to say. I could just literally feel like these witches in this hand just getting smashed by like an army of angels. It would just like knock them, and then it would come back and shake me, knock them. This went on for probably 10 minutes. So it was pretty intense warfare while I was awake. And then they got taken out. But, you know, just reflecting on that, like, what would have happened if they took my soul out? It's not going to happen. And they haven't attempted to do that again. But how easy would it be for them to actually put a demon into me and continue doing my so-called work, you know? And this is a threat. Like, this is actually the level of mind control and witchcraft that we're dealing with at this moment. And I think it explains a lot. Like, you'll see a platform and you'll think, that's a strong believer, they're sharing great stuff, whatever. And then they'll just completely go into the new age, just like out of nowhere. You know, I've seen plenty of that happen over the last few years, and just think, wow, that person's changed, right? Could this be an explanation for that? I don't know. And another thing I just wanted to share was about, this is about a month ago, I think now. I had the same experience. I don't know if it was the same bunch, but it was a few more, a slightly bigger group come in. And they were actually attempting, and this was just before I was falling asleep. So I was kind of like not quite asleep, not quite awake, right? Just, you know, when your mind's a bit relaxed, they'd come in and they were trying to get to a part, right? I mean, it felt like it was right in the back of my head, but it was a part that I actually hadn't come across before, because in all my parts work, all my journaling, all my prayer, I reintegrate every part as I come across it, absorb it. They found a part that I wasn't even aware of. So I was very shocked and very peeved at that, actually. But these witches, they basically they opened up a complete corridor system. So it was like, I felt like looking forward, I could just see like long black corridors going out, and it felt like they went to the end of the world. I know it's interdimensional, so I can only tell you the feeling. I can't really give you a measurement. And it was like at the end of each of those corridors was the feeling of a witch. And they were all cussing and, you know, doing the cursing that witches like to do, because remember, they're full of hate, they're full of rage. That's where their energy comes from. And it's so sad because they are so broken. That's their fuel. But they were sitting at the end of these corridors, cussing or whatever. And the part that they'd found in me was a very young part, I would say 4 or 5 years old, even that I hadn't even come across. But I knew straight away that this little part had been trained in witchcraft. It was a feeling that I hadn't come across before. And it wasn't like she would really know much to do because she was such a young part, but she was going through the whole thing, I feel, with the new age. She was being drawn to them, and then there was parts of her going like, this is awful, we need to get out of here. So I'm like, I'm just taking control over all of this, and I'm just smashing them with everything I've got from, you know, God's treasure chest, calling in Jesus, calling in angels. And it didn't last that long. It probably lasted 5 minutes. You know, it wasn't a particularly hectic attack. But what I just want to put out there to survivors is, you know, this is how it works. Like with witches, they may even know some of your abusers or who programmed you. But even if they don't, there's very general ways that they can go in. There's general paths and general rituals that they can access. They can go in and look for a witchcraft altar, you know, and they found something in me that I didn't even know. And like, I'm not going to say thank you to them, but, you know, because of their attack, you know, I've been able to get stronger. So thank you, God. And, you know, that's what we have to be doing, is just be aware that they're coming at us in all different sorts of ways, you know, through technology, through platforms, these sorts of attacks, etc. Like, it's so multifaceted at this stage. And, you know, for survivors, you have the skills, you know, like I've just done some videos on spiritual warfare. There's so many things we can do to prevent these attacks. I know, Laura, you've spoken about how to break curses and protect yourself as well. So it's not something to be scared of. It's something for us to stand in our authority and push back and say, no, I don't accept, get out. Like, don't come near my parts. Don't come near me. You know, that one's healed now, by the way, and reintegrated, but don't do that. That's not cool. Like, do not try and come into me in any way or access my parts. So I just wanted to share that, because I know from speaking to survivors, the same thing is happening to others. So please be aware, arm yourselves with the truth and be ready, be ready if that happens to grab your Bible. Like I go straight to Psalms and start reading that out. Psalms are a really good way to just push back on any kind of witchcraft attack. And I don't know, is there anything else you would suggest, Laura?
I think you shared it pretty well. I think, we can't go wrong with prayer and reading the scriptures and just asking the armies of angels to help us for sure. I think that is the best answer that we can give, really. So
that's it. And I think we have to remember too, Jesus absolutely made a spectacle of all of the cults. With his resurrection, he overcame death. He overcame all of their powers. He's completely smashed them. Like we already have victory through him. All of this is it's a shit show. Like it really is. Like they know that they're going down and they are just rushing ahead of God's judgment to try and take as many people with them. And, I've spoken to, people that they've even said, the human beings that are taken over by the cults at this stage, they're just talking about now about their body counts, like how many people they can take out with them because they think it's going to buy them a better place in Lucifer's paradise. Like it's just such a joke. Do you know what I mean? And, another thing I would just say on defeating witchcraft that I think is really important is, witchcraft is about manipulation and control. So you can't defeat something around you or that's attacking you until you defeat it within you. And, I have had to work a lot on not being a control freak. Being a control freak made me very successful in my jobs before because I would be so organized and I would want to have, make sure everything was happening exactly perfectly. But that's a trauma response, right? And I didn't like to have to say this, it kind of pains me, but that was witchcraft. I was controlling everyone minutely to make sure this business was running really well, etc., or my relationships in my life. But that was my trauma response. I was acting in a spirit of witchcraft, not to the level that these guys are, but, if we want to defeat witchcraft, we have to completely heal the parts of us that feel that we need to control things. And a big part of that is being able to take it to God, give it to God and ask for God's advice on it. So, if you find a stronghold within yourself of pride or rebellion, the witches are going to come for that. It's keeping me very humble at the moment, Laura. But yeah, if you have a stronghold of needing control, you might be great in all areas of your life, but maybe around your kids or around your husband, you feel like I've got to control this or something like that. It can be such little things, that they find a door in because you're doing manipulation and control. So I've really found that blocks them out as well. Yes.
I want to thank you for everything you shared. You shared enormous amount of things that will help people. Where can people find you to your YouTube videos and wherever you have them?
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube and Telegram under Gabbi Choong, so GABBICHOONG, and on Facebook under Gabbi Choong and also under Truth, Justice, Freedom for Children.
Okay, excellent. So people probably don't know this, but we had to record tonight. So it's going to go on air in 20 minutes. So thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
We were chatting for ages. Oh my God, we had a lot to get through. Thank you so much, Laura. God bless you.
You too. Take care.